Nintendo has made some of the most recognizable video game characters in all of history. Here on the Zwiggo channel, we of course focus on one of their biggest ones, Pokemon. But what would happen if all of those tiny little creatures you know and love were replaced with characters from Nintendo's other giant, Mario? Well, one of the newest Pokemon ROM hacks called Fury Red is trying to figure that out. It changes out all the original 151 Pokemon and replaces it with mobs, enemies, and NPCs from the Mario universe, like Goomba, Toad, and even the most recognizable villain of all time, Bowser. Each and every one of these new so-called Pokemon have their own stat distributions, movesets, abilities, and everything else so they can fit into the Pokemon universe. And I'm going to try and capture all of them. So strap in as I 100% complete Pokemon Fury Red together with you. Here we go! We start off by naming ourselves after my favorite Mario Universe character, Waluigi. And my rival is going to be his brother, Wario. But let me know in the comments down below what your actual favorite Mario character is. In the first minutes of our adventure, we meet up with Dr. Mario, who loves shooting pills in Smash Bros, but here in the Pokemon universe, he's going to provide us with our starter Pokemon. We get the choice between the grass ground type, Cactus Jack, the water type fish, Blurp, and the guy that's an annoyance in every Mario lava level, Poto Boo. Considering water is always a great option in the Kanto region, I decided to go with Blurp, but once our first fight against Wario broke out, I realized I picked the wrong dude. As Cactus Jack has the rough skin ability, which is just super broken in the early game, and that ended up winning him the battle in the end. After this, we are tasked with picking up a package in Porshley Heights, which would normally reward us with 64 coins, but here we get 5 Pokeballs and a Pokedex once we give it back to Dr. Mario. He then tasks me with filling out this Pokedex by capturing all 151 creatures, and so I head out immediately and start capturing some of the most well-known Mario enemies in the world. Like the grass-type Goomba, who probably has a headache after Mario jumped on him like a million times, the normal-type Koopa, who's forced to walk from left to right in nearly every game he's appeared in, but also the cute cat Blitty, and the shyest guy of them all, Shy Guy, who we all recognize from the multiplayer races we used to do on Mario Kart DS. I then moved on to Route 22, where I captured a poison mushroom, a brongo, but also finally a blue bird. An old man then decided to give me a good rod after watching his tutorial, and you don't have to worry about any other rods in this game because this is the only one that's available to you. I used this rod to fish up a Cheep in the local pond, and we all know this guy. He's in nearly every single water level where he tries to eat you up like some nice fish food. On the next round, I grabbed 2 more tiny little friends, Bidybub and Squiggler, and after this, it was time to enter the nearby forest. This is where we found the evolved form of Squiggler, Wiggler, who always runs over me in Mario Kart games. But that wasn't the only thing we got here. We also captured a little black guy named Fuzzy, a monkey called Yukiki who I'd never seen before, and a baby Yoshi who brought up some very nostalgic feelings for me as he helped me out a lot in Super Mario Advance 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This was every creature I could capture before the first gym, but before we went and took that on, I wanted to get revenge on my brother Wario. Now that Blurp had the level advantage, I could easily take out his Koopa and Cactus Jack with bubbles and pounds, so I could win the battle, knock some coins out of him, and spend them on some precious balls. After this, I reached Pewter City, where my first ever gym battle was about to happen. The man that was running the business here loved to use creatures that want to crush you, like Spike and Womp, but both of them seemed to have quite a weak spot for bubbles, as only a few of them managed to pop and break them. And this let me acquire the Boulder Star, which meant we needed 7 more to enter the Royal Castle at the end where we could save Princess Peach. I traveled to Route 3 after this, where my starter evolved into a dolphin. So let's hope that just with Mario, this guy will help me cross the oceans. Until then, there were a lot more creatures waiting for me on this next route, namely Nipper, but also its fiery form, Fire Nipper, the big man who loves throwing out his balls, Spike, and finally Princess Peach's henchman, Toad. I then entered a cave level named Mount Moon, where more enemies were waiting for me. So we acquired the little bat Fang, Thwimp, the Boulder, the immortal Buzzy Beetle, the guy who's always up to something mischievous, Monty Mole, and lastly, 2 real bros named Hammer and Sumo. At the end of Mount Moon, I picked up the Helix fossil, but don't worry, we'll be able to get the other one in the late game as well. On Route 4, we find a fugitive that causes the most car crashes every single year named Blooper, but also the poisonous Shrooblet. I then put on my swim pants because we were about to get to the next gym, which was in a water level against Misty. I tried to fish up some things out of her pool, but that didn't really work out, so let's just get right into our battle. She started out with a water electric type Jelly Beam, but honestly, this thing didn't want to stay in too long after seeing my grass type Toad. That's why she switched out after just one leafage into her claw grip. I cripple it with a paralyzing stun spore and do some decent damage to bring it down to half HP before getting taken out. I try to take it out with even more bullet seeds from Baby Yoshi, but that doesn't work out either as she uses a super potion to heal up before crushing me with her pincers. That's when I brought out my dolphin to save the day as bubbles and flails rained down over the rest of her team so we could acquire the Cascade Star after our win. Now it was time to try and cross a bridge, but that was harder than I thought as my brother Wario would stop me. He was pretty mad after seeing that his game WarioWare wasn't performing as well, so he decided to throw out his armored Terrapin. My dolphin is able to bring it down to red HP and even hits a bounce on the incoming Cactus Jack, but sadly enough we don't end up getting a KO, just some very major damage on both of them. But my Koopa had something to say about that, as it delivered both finishing blows on these two creatures. Hammerbro also took insane damage from rollout, but was able to crack my turtle shell with his hammer in the end. Baby Yoshi can then clean up with Bullet Seed, and the final Pokemon Toad just needed a couple of Dragon Tails so we could come out as the victor. Because of his efforts, Koopa evolved into Terrapin himself, and that's when we could finally cross the bridge to meet some new enemies. Firstly, the guy that just wouldn't shut up called Talking Flower, then the poisonous sea urchin was fished up, and lastly, the ugliest flying thing ever, Toadie, also joined the squad. I then helped out the scientist who turned himself into some kind of thing we've never seen before, and as a reward for turning him back into a human, we get a ticket to sail around the world with the Daisy Cruiser. That's an opportunity I'm definitely going to take, but first we need some more captures to go into our Pokédex. Starting off with Route 5 where we grab Firebro and Lakitu, who loves throwing spiky balls at Mario from his safe cloud in the sky. On Route 6 we grab the Sidestepper Crab and the creature that haunts family computer and Nintendo Entertainment Systems, Ninja. Yeah, you better watch out when you run into any of those. Lastly was the aggressive bully who wants to pierce you with its spiky horns, so we ran away from it and hid in Fiery Path, where we were berated with magma boulders and learned that overworld items aren't safe either as a what popped out of one. The last thing we captured here was the Fire Dino Blarg, and then moved on to Route 11 where we grabbed a little Sparky, and the most important item if you're last in a Mario Kart race, Bullet Bill. But first, a word to the sponsor of today's video, Girls Frontline 2 Exilium, a strategic cross-platform tactical RPG where your choices shape the fate of the future, as you'll be playing as a commander to join forces with the Tactical Dolls, an elite android soldiers unit that was specifically made to battle through a post-apocalyptic world. But it's not easy because strategy is everything. You have to lead your squad into intense real-time combat where positioning and resource management are key to your victory. You can even customize all of your tactical dolls, each with its own unique skills and abilities, so your decisions can overcome increasingly complex missions. You'll customize your dolls in the new refitting room, where you can enhance them with new gear and even become closer with your T-dolls, allowing you to interact with them, uncover their stories, and build strong relationships with them to create a deeper connection that adds a layer of personal investment to every fight you get into. They also have a limited themed event called Aphelion, and part 1 is going to be open from March 20th until April 9th. That offers you new exclusive rewards like targeted access permissions times 30, regular access permissions times 10, and Klukai's new outfit, Speedstar, for free. You can also use their redeem codes from the 12th until the 20th of March to get some extra rewards. And you also have new missions and a thrilling story arc that can't be missed. There will also be increased drop rates for Klukai and Macchiato, along with their new elite weapons Skilla and Bittersweet Caramel from March 20th until April 9th. On top of all this, they will also have a new weekly resetting game mode called Boundary Push, where you'll explore a contaminated zone with your dolls so they can collect resources and you can earn an abundance of development materials. So what are you waiting for? Go and download Girls Frontline 2 Exilium right now through the link in the description or pinned comment, or by scanning the QR code on screen. And if you do decide to start playing, don't forget to follow all of their social media platforms for the latest updates. A huge thank you to Girls Frontline for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back into it. I then went to the docks to enter Daisy's cruiser and started harassing some of her chefs. Once I hoarded enough mushrooms, I used them to evolve Fire Nipper into Fire Plant, and used him to burn down Wario's entire team right there on that boat. Not even his evolved starter Pokey could stand up to me. He should have stayed in the dry desert where he belongs. I then learned how to cut down trees from the captain, search through some trash, and battle the electrical maniac Surge. I start off with Baby Yoshi and start spamming Body Slam and Dragon Tail to do damage against each and every one of his 3 characters. Once they are weakened, my Dolphin can take out 2 of them with Water Pulse and do decent damage against his ace, Big Sumo Bro, but his shockwaves tend to take me down. So I send out my Fire Plant again to combine Leech Seed with Leaf Tornado for a devastating combo that wins me the Thunderstar. After this, Baby Yoshi evolved into actual Yoshi, but I immediately traded him away for his wife Birdo. I know bros normally always go on the first place, but who can say no to a snout like this? After this, I moved on to Route 9, where I captured the Ice-type Flurry, the Cloud Fu, and a Bee. Route 10 was also filled with some explosive material like Babomb, Spike Zog, and also the guy that loves to give you some finance advice, Moneybag. After this, we entered a big dark tunnel where I ended up finding a bony beetle, Womp who still had the bandages on his back, Swoop who normally always flies out of the cave, and finally the dog that always breaks away from his leash, Chain Chomp. Our next destination was the spooky Luigi's mansion that is always filled with ghosts, but we are way too scared to face them right now, definitely without a Silph Scope. However, we are able to face our brother Wario here, who's mourning the loss of his trusty bike that he drove off of every single Super Smash Bros. Stage. So we're going to try and cheer him up with a battle. Blarg and Toad team up to use Flame Burst and Leafage, which ends up taking out his Terrapin. My Dolphin then uses some acrobatic tricks to confuse Sledge Bro as his own hammer takes him down. The rest of his team, Fishbone, Blarg, and Pokey all get swept up by my Dolphin like it's nothing, and this encourages Wario to get himself a new motorcycle. But our goal was very different, as I was about to capture more and more creatures, starting off with Jelly Beam as a fishing encounter, and on Route 8 I grabbed the musical genius Beatboxer and the masked thief Nabbit. Bowser Jr. was waiting for me on Route 9, so I snatched him up as well, and then picked up the Mario Universe Eevee Shell Creep once I reached Celadon City. This guy can evolve into 3 different forms, but not with evolutionary stones, as he has a very special evolutionary method that we will uncover once we're ready. Speaking of evolutionary stones, however, I picked all of them up at the local department store and used one of them to evolve Blarg into the Magma Boss Magmarg, and immediately used him to burn down the entirety of Erika's gym, one-shotting Crazy D, Captain Toad, who should be in the mines anyway, and finally the Aloha Dancer Pianta, who surround you if you manage to win the cup in Mario Kart Double Dash back on the GameCube. Now that we have the Rainbow Star acquired, we can't head over to Rainbow Road, but we can capture a new creature, Gesso, who ended up hiding in the nearby pond. I then entered the evil Mafia's hideout that is full with plumbers that have gone rogue. And after defeating all of them and spinning my way through it, a couple evolutions happened, like Toad into Captain Toad and Spike into Clubba. With him, we could take on the mastermind behind this entire organization, Sergeant Cooperman, who wants to put all other plumbers out of commission, and we can't let that happen. So we bring out our baby Bowser and use Fire Spin and Dragon Claw to take out his Rotten Mushroom. We also get hit with a critical hit, so our Anger Point ability activates, which maximizes our attack, allowing us to break through the hard exterior of Thwomp with just one hit of his dragon claws, but the final enemy Fishbone ended up being faster and used Dig. So I one-shot it with Water Pulse from Dolphin and took over his HQ, as we also ended up finding a vacuum to clean up ghosts. However, before we went back to Luigi's haunted mansion to use it, I had a few more things to do, like capturing the coolest bird on planet Earth, Kongdor, picked up a flying mushroom and some hot tea so we could enter Saffron City, where I defeated an entire legion of sumo bros in the nearby dojo so I could get myself a rock hog. After this, Baby Bowser evolved into Koopa Kid, Dolphin into Dory, who is going to allow us to traverse the entire sea if we wanted to. Lil Sparky also evolved into Amp, so watch out that you don't electrocute yourself. And finally, Bob-omb turned into Chuckya. With those evolutions out of the way, I faced my fears and went into the mansion that is haunted. That's where we captured a Boo who was trying to hide its face, and also a Duplighost who loves transforming into others. At the highest point of the tower, we managed to save Princess Fuji and got to play his flute. This woke up a Mad Piano who attacked me in a fit of rage, but I was able to play the right notes to calm it down and add it to my team. But the road to our next destination, Fuchsia City, was long and hard, and on the way I found many more companions that wanted to join in my quest, as I captured the Ice-type Lantern Lil Burr, the Bean-like Cyborg Wizard, and some viruses that like to get up to no good. I then got to the Sacred Safari Zone where we could get the other two starters, Cactus Jack and Potta Boo, and as a bonus we also captured the spiky turtle Spiny. At the end of the Safari Zone, we learned how to traverse water, but we'll have to take on the Ninja Master before we can utilize it. The same goes for the mushroom that gives me super strength, which we got from a guy with no teeth. Now before we go and take on Koga, it's time to do a bunch of new evolutions. First up was Goomba into Goom Boss. Second was Fire Bro into Heavy Bro, who's ready to throw a touchdown, or something like that. I know nothing about American football. Thwimp became Thwomp, Wiggler got Winks and turned into Flutter, Yukiki got locked up for some crimes and turned into Chained Kong, Podoboo turned into Lava Bubble and then into an actual dragon. That definitely seems like it has seen better days. Cactus Jack got more prickly after turning into Pokey and eventually even into Mummy Pokey. Bitty Bud finally got some new friends as he turned into 3 of them. Cheep Cheep got the biggest lip injection ever and turned into Cheep Chomp. Hide your girlfriend because Fuzzy turned into the Fuzzler. Chuckya got a crown and became the iconic King Bob-omb that always gets thrown around in every single Mario 64 speedrun. Shy Guy turned into Sniffit. I'm just hoping he doesn't sniff me. Blitty the Cat got a bit more feral and turned into Broggy the Dog. Nipper turned into the iconic Piranha Plant and then into Petey the Pirate, who's been turned into a grass flying type out of all things. We also got our own big sumo bro. Major Burrows was probably in first place in a Mario Kart race because he has a blue shell on his head now. Talking Flower turned into Crazy D, Hammer Bro into Sledge Bro, and its final form turned out to be the amazing Flying Hammer Bro, who can throw all of his hammers at you from his 2 sky blocks. Bowser's trusty advisor Kamek also showed its face, but she quickly aged and turned into Camney the Granny. Shrooblet lost 3 letters and turned into Shroob, and I then used a Leaf Stone on it to turn it into an Elder Shroom. With the use of Water Stones, we got a Giant Urshian and Claw Gripper, and after using a Thunderstone on Lucky 2, we got Lucky Thunder. Duplighost shed its blankets for a new one in Dupliss. Bully got some armor upgrades and grew up to be Prince Bully. Boss Brolder was ready to squash you, and my personal favorite turtle variant Dry Bones also showed its face. Bullet Bill got new jet engines and turned into Banzai Bill, but don't let its size intimidate you, just jump on its head once and it's down and out. I then evolved Shell Creep by having a Boo in my party and leveling it up. This turned it into Tubby Blubby. Speaking of Boo, he turned into his second form, Boo Lossus. Fu blew somebody's house away once he turned into Taifu. Terrapin got a promotion in Bowser's army and turned into Koopa Troll. The big squid Gooper Blooper was ready to spew its ink anywhere. And last but not least, Chain Chomp made a deal with the devil and turned into Fire Chomp. With all of these new upgrades, I made a very decent team that could easily wipe Koga off the map. And I didn't even need my entire team, only Camney the Granny. After setting up a nasty plot, I could use Ancient Power and Psychic to take down Ninji, Elder Shroop, the viruses, and lastly Gesso to get the Soul Star. and then surfed over to the icy Seafoam Islands that was apparently being ruled over by a green tyrant. Once we traveled to the deepest part of the cave, we found him. His name was Wart, and he wouldn't yield easily, as Kamni did as much damage as possible with ancient power. Then I would start spamming balls with the rest of my team until he was finally mine. Our next destination was in the total opposite direction, Silco, a plumber company that also makes vacuum cleaners on the side. We heard that they're being taken over by the evil plumbers, and we have to try and stop them before it's too late. Otherwise, we might be out of a job. But it's worse than I thought. They even recruited my brother Wario, who's been placed in the facility to try and hold me back. But we all know that's not going to happen, because I have a new strategy, namely click nasty plot with Kamni and proceed to destroy everything in my path. Once defeated, we learned that Wario just wanted to rise to the top and be the best plumber ever. However, this is not the way, my brother. And with those wise words, he finally realizes that he has to change something. And while he goes to work on himself, we pick up a free junior trooper from one of the employees and then face off with our biggest threat, Sergeant Cooperman. He was just about to buy out the company and have all of the plumber rights to himself, but we can strip him of all of his coins if we beat him in this battle. We all know this guy loves his ground types, as he loves to dig holes for pipes to go into. Unfortunately for him, I have the water that fills up those pipes, as Dory takes down his first Pokemon easily with 2 Sparkle areas. The next 2, Thwomp and Drybones, fall the same way, and his final team member Sharkbone just takes 2 crunches of my Tubba Blubba. With the plumbing plans foiled, we make a deal with the president of Silco. We get a Master Ball as our reward, and you better be sure we use this on the strongest enemy we'll ever face. But until then, let's prepare our team for yet another big battle against the 6th gym leader, Sabrina, by evolving Fluffy into the Snowman Mr. Blizzard and Boolosses into the almighty King Boo. But I didn't need any of those to show Sabrina what real devastation looks like. I set up one Shell Smash with Dry Bones, then spam Shadow Sneak and Shadow Bone, and her entire Psychic team synergy goes out of the window, as we claim the Marsh Star as ours and head over to Route 21 to learn some dance moves from our own Pianta. We then barge through into Cinnabar Island, where a volcano is supposed to erupt. Probably the work of Magmark, so we have to get the star on this island before it's too late. But there were a couple of things I also decided to do while I was here, like reviving my fossil and turning it into the little seahorse Urain. I then went back to the museum to pick up the old Amber, and despite being very old, it turned out to be a Tatanga with an entire machine on his body. So I'd say he's way more futuristic than you think. I also found out that Shy Guy had 2 more evolutions just like Tyrogue. If your attack is higher than your defense, he will turn into Bandit, and if they're equal, he'll turn into Anti-Guy. So I got both of those, then went to pick up the secret key and challenged Blaine for the Volcano Star. And you might have already guessed it, but yes, we entirely extinguished it with Dory's Surfs. I'm talking Koopa Kid, Totomesu, Fire Chomp, and Boss Brawler. None of them could stand up to the strength of my Loch Ness monster. Now, normally we would follow Bill to the Civvy Islands, but here's where I found out that this game does not have a post-game at all. All 151 new specimens are to be acquired in the Kanto region, and you don't have to waste time going to the Civvy Islands at all, which is great. But I did end up getting a letter from Sergeant Cooperman to meet him at his gym in Viridian City, so we could finally determine who the best ever plumber is. And if we manage to win, his evil plans will be over forever. So let's end them off with a bang of a pipe. At first, I thought this was going to be an easy sweep again with Pianta, who was able to overpower the Big Mole, Thwomp, and even the almighty Dry Bones, but because I already took so much damage, Pianta ended up going down to the rough skin ability of Urchin. But not without taking him to his grave as well with Petal Dance. His final team member is Sharkbone, and with one more Shadow Ball from King Boo, the Earth Star and the entire Plumbing Kingdom is mine. But our 2 main goals are yet to be completed, as we have to go to the castle on top of Indigo Plateau to save Peach, and we still need to acquire every single Mario character. But we can't do that until we beat Wario yet again. He's starting to get back on the right path, at least that's what I'm thinking, king, as he also wants to head for the Indigo Plateau to try and help me to save the princess. So let's have one last friendly battle with our brother. And this fight is immediately in my advantage, as my junior Troopa can use Jump Kick to come out on top against his Koopa Troll. The amazing Flying Hammer Bro does end up going down by a Thunderbolt, followed up by a Surf from Dory. Mummy Pokey then takes 2 Seed Bombs and an Acrobatics from Banzai Bill to go down. His Kingfin hits like a truck, leaving my Banzai Bill with just 1 HP after getting hit with a Fish's Rend, but we do counter back with the Acrobatics and do come out on top. The incoming Magmarg just gets cooled down by my Dory Surf again, and finally he has a level 25 Blitty that he forgot to level up, I guess, but this thing just gets one-shot easily. Now before I head over to Victory Road, I do capture a Fishbone in the nearby pond, and once I reach Victory Road itself, I grab a Rotten Mushroom. And because the Sevi Islands are gone, the third legendary that's normally Moltres gets moved to Victory Road as well, and this turned out to be the mysterious Dimentio. So we trap it in our little ball and finally reach the castle that is Indigo Plateau. But because there's nothing left to do after we beat the champion, I decided to fill out my Pokédex first, going around the region to capture anything I might have missed and evolving everything I have left in my boxes. And what better villain to start off with than the one that started it all, the big, mean, fire-breathing turtle, Bowser. And the second one ended up being Kingfin before I headed out to the power plant. There was no more creatures for me to capture here besides the legendary and evil Fawful. This old glasses-wearing smirky toad was no match after I put it to sleep and trapped it in my ball of ultraness. After this, I headed back to the top of Luigi's mansion to capture a bruiser, and then it hit me. Cerulean Cave should be open for me, as it's not locked behind post-game content anymore. And I was right, there was just a stringed boulder blocking the way, and once I got that out of the way, I could go in and capture all the juicy creatures inside. Like Chakron, who has the ability Wonder Guard despite not having 1 HP. And secondly was the creature locked behind the Helix fossil, Gao. The creature we missed out on in the Fighting Dojo Jinx also ended up being here, but the main attraction was the legendary Dark Star that could destroy the entire universe if we don't contain it. So I used my Master Ball to capture this mighty creature and added it to my own arsenal of already great weapons. I kept on adding to this after evolving Shell Creep into Motley and Boom Boom by having Kamek and Sumo Bro in my party. I also evolved Gao into Totomesu, Honeybee into Queen Bee, found my very own Shark Bone, and checked out my boxes for the last 3 evolutions: Fire Dino Plant, Amazy D, and the finale, Dark Bowser. I then went to Dr. Mario and showed him that my Pokédex was entirely complete, but the only reward I ended up getting was a congratulations. But we never needed much to make something of our life, and with that in mind, I builded my final team and challenged the ice-cold Lorelei and her starting buddy, Mr. Blizzard. I tried to knock it into a million pieces with Boom Boom and King Babam, but before I could, she swapped that into her big-lipped fish. Luckily, PT the Pirate and its leaf blades were all we needed to take it down. A Meteor Mash from Boom Boom then crushes her snowman, and Bowser's Earthquakes easily take out Gooper and Motley. Finally is Baron Burr, and with 1 Flare Blitz, that entire piece of ice gets melted into a puddle of water. With the first lock of the castle opened, we can move on to our second boss battle against Bruno. But here, all we had to do was set up a swords dance with PT the Pirate, and then we'd use dual wing beats to individually crush each and every one of our enemies. Onto Agatha, who is different but the same, because now it's finally time for me to use Dark Bowser and see how overpowered he really is. He has the single most base stats of any creature, and you can see that because every single time we click a move, the Pokemon in front of us just dies. So yeah, Agatha and her ghost can get sucked up by Luigi for all I care. Let's move on to Lance. I thought this was going to be another sweep after Bowser was able to tank a Draco Meteor from Zamasu. That's when I set up the Shell Smash and used Outrage to take this thing, Yoshi, and his girlfriend, Birdo, to the graveyard. He unfortunately hit himself in confusion once the Fire Dino Plant came out, but not to worry as we still have Dry Bones in the back, and once we hit that Bone Meringue, the Dino gets sent back to the gravel where he belongs, and his very own Bowser also couldn't stand up to one of his minions. With Lance defeated, we moved on to the final floor of the castle, where we're supposed to save the princess, but but we didn't expect our brother Wario to be here, as he finally unfolds his mischievous plan. He was behind every single obstacle we had faced, all because he wanted to have Princess Peach for himself. And now, at the end, we're finally going to throw away our brotherly love and punish him for everything he's done to the plumbers of this region. I immediately whip him into shape as my fire-lashing King Bomb comes out on top against Koopa Troll. I hit another one on the amazing flying hammer bro, but a close combat ends me off. Little did he know that I had a Dark Bowser waiting in the back the night days. Once his flying blocks fell to the ground, I brought out Dry Bones to take care of Magmark with Bone Meringue. His starter Mummy Poke then comes in, but we have had time to prepare for this mummy. So we burn his toilet paper wrapping with Flare Blitz to bring out Broggy, who's easy pickings with close combat from Boom Boom. And last but not least was his King Finn up against my PT the Pirate, and with a Leaf Blade we finish this fight and become the strongest plumber in the land of Kanto. And that is the story of how Waluigi saved Princess Peach and 100% completed the new Mario Mon universe.